Behind me is the Ioniq 5N, and today we're going to go over the top 6 coolest features. First up, we have launch control. To activate launch control, we've got a preset button here. When you click that, you see LC up on the screen. And if you go over to the right screen here, let's go ahead and deactivate launch control. You can actually vary the grip level of the road. So if you're on a gravel surface or it's wet, you can have a low grip scenario, or in this case, it's dry. We can go up to a high grip scenario and activate. Now listen to how cool the sounds this thing makes in launch control. We've got the car in drive. To put it into drive, you use this awesome controller here, toggle it upwards. Now let's go ahead, hold the brake, hold the gas. Next up, we're going to talk about one of the craziest features, N-active sound. Now, it seems scary at first, an electric car making a pseudo-synthetic noise, but when you're on the track, it actually works well. So right now, we're in a mode called ignition mode. Listen to the sound it makes. It even has burbles and pops like a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo. If you go in right here and click on the settings of ignition, you can actually change the volume. It's also coming on the exterior speakers as well. There's a speaker at the front and the rear, but you can turn that off. And you can also turn off the burbles if you want, so it's just more of a smooth soundtrack. It makes a lot more sense when we actually put this thing out on the track. Let's go to N-active sound again. We've got evolution mode, kind of a electric futuristic sound. And then we've got supersonic, which is modeled after Top Gun fighter jets. All right, guys, so we are on track at Laguna Seca in the Ioniq 5N, about to test out the AnyShift mode in the ultimate environment. So AnyShift basically simulates an 8-speed DCT using the regen from the electric motors to interrupt the torque curve. So each gear actually has its own individual torque curve so that each shift from first to second feels different than second to third and third to fourth, etc. I'm excited to see, because I think this could be a game changer for EVs. Wow. Oh, it sounds pretty cool when you shift. And I'm honestly really impressed with the level of grip the Ioniq 5N has. So we're gonna do an out lap right here, warm the tires up, but then we're gonna get going pretty darn fast and see what this thing is all about. Wow, for just P0 tires, not Corsas or Trofeos, this thing has an awful lot of grip. So fun being out on one of the coolest tracks in the world, Laguna Seca, going up the hill, getting ready for that corkscrew. The turn-in is impressive. It doesn't have a ton of feedback in the steering wheel, but it does have really good steering weight. The balance of the car is very predictable. I've got traction control almost completely off, and it's very confidence-inspiring. Wow. And this is in endurance mode. So in race mode, there are 2 different sub-modes that you can use. You can use endurance mode that allows you to lap the track longer because it limits horsepower to 540. And then next session, we're gonna go out in sprint mode, which gives you that full 601 horsepower. But before we continue, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, AG1. AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement for whole body health. I've been working on eating well and exercising regularly, as unfortunately I'm about to turn 30, and honestly AG1 has become a big part of my routine. It helps your gut health with pre and probiotics and helps support overall immune health, 2 things that are very important to me. AG1 is there to support your brain, your gut, and your immune system health, and it lays the groundwork for long-term health so you can do what you love as long as possible. It tastes good and it's super easy to use. All right, guys, so go to drinkag1.com/vehiclevirgins or scan the QR code to get yourself a free welcome kit that includes a shaker, a canister, a year supply of vitamin D3K2, as well as 5 extra travel packs. Special thanks to AG1 for sponsoring today's video. But then when you click the NGB button on the steering wheel, it gives you that 40 horsepower boost. So you get that full 641. But honestly, after a lap, of being behind the wheel, you kind of forget that you're in an EV, especially because so many modern cars nowadays have that soundtrack pumped in. It kind of just feels like you're in a car with a lot of sound added through the speakers, but you're in an internal combustion engine car, which is a pretty cool feat. Obviously, electric cars have huge benefits, but for the enthusiast, it often loses some of that drama, some of that special feeling of even a slower sports car. But this, with that any shift, and I honestly think the sound, this is just one of 3 settings, sounds pretty damn cool. I know what you're thinking, fake sound that seems cringy, but honestly, they did such a good job and you can't really convey it on video. When you hear it in person and you go through the gears using any shift, it makes sense. And hopefully there'll be a bunch more sounds that you can choose from in the future. We're in supersonic, listen to the shift sound. It's got a sonic boom noise. That's hilarious. So now we are in sprint mode, which is gonna give us that full 601 horsepower. This NGB button is gonna give me 641 horsepower. We've got the sound mode off right now. We're gonna go ahead, shift this into drive. We're in ignition mode, but let's try out the other modes. We were in ignition before. This is evolution. Kind of a futuristic electric car noise. So sprint mode, we've got a little bit more power. And then we're gonna try when we go up the hill, hitting that N-Grin boost. Yep. Oh, and you get more sound out of it. That's pretty cool. We got a 10-second countdown timer. Man, this thing is disorienting how fast you're going when you don't have the any shift on. When you've got the any shift on, you can kind of tell based on what gear you're in and the soundtrack. But in the supersonic mode without the shifting, it's kind of crazy. Boost time, click the NGB button, and 10 seconds of extra power. Fifth up is N drift mode, and it's a lot cooler than your typical EV drift mode. If we come on over to this display and go to the N drift optimizer and go ahead and activate that, all of a sudden, this thing is going to become 100% rear-wheel drive. It decouples the front drivetrain, and now we've got a rear-wheel drive drift missile. But the cool part is, on corner exit, it actually recouples the front drivetrain in order to use all the power, that's 641, to thrust you forward. If you just use the rear electric motor, and you don't have the front, then you're exiting the corner and you're going on a straightaway with essentially about half the power. So this is really cool that it reactivates both electric motors to allow you to power out of a drift. It also makes sure that you can hold the drift as long as possible, as easy as possible to assist you and make you feel like a pro. And last up is N Race. If we go into N Race and activate that, you can switch between sprint and endurance. Now, in sprint mode, it activates that full 601 horsepower. NGB is active, so you can get that 641. But in endurance mode, it actually limits the power to 540, so you have more battery for longer. If you want to do a longer track session, you can put it in endurance mode, but if you want to set lap times, you can put it into sprint. Well, guys, there you have it, the top 6 cool features of the Ioniq 5N. I've had an absolute blast with this car, and I'm truly impressed.